Hi, this is my Week 5 progress report. Before I start, I want to mention two things. First, I've added a references section to my project documentation this week. I researched a few Bilibili tutorials related to Go tower defense games and state machine implementation, and I've cited them into my project as required. Second, last week I mentioned I might redraw some of the character appearances. After spending some time experimenting, I wasn't satisfied with the new versions I generated, so I decided to keep the current character designs. I think they fit the game's overall visual style well, and I'd rather not change something that's already working. And now, on to this week's actual progress. The main feature I implemented this week is a game defeat system. When all player towers are destroyed, the game now triggers a defeat screen with a restart button. I also added 2 more enemy types to round out the third level. Looking at the file system panel, you can see 2 new enemy scenes have been added to this week: Enemy 7 and Enemy 8. These follow the same node structure as the previous enemies and reuse the existing enemy.gd script. The script itself is unchanged this week. All the new code is in world.gd. Let me quickly show you the new enemies. Here's enemy 7. I'll switch to the 2D view so you can see it. As you can see, it follows the exact same node structure as all the previous enemies. A character body 2D at the root, with an enemy sprite 2D, a collision shape 2D, and an attack range area 2D. The only difference is the sprite itself. And here is enemy 8. The second new enemy. It's a whale. So it's the same structure, different sprite. Both of these reuse the existing enemy.gd script with no modifications, which means adding them require only creating their scene files and configuring the sprite frames in the animated sprite 2D node. This is the benefit of the shared script architecture I built in the earlier weeks. Adding new enemy types is purely a content task. Now, let's look at world.gd. Oh, sorry. Okay, the first small change is in level data, which is here. For level 3, I added enemy 7 and enemy 8 to the enemy scene list. Level 3 now spawns from a pool of all 8 enemy types, making it the most chaotic and challenging level in the game. Now the main feature. At the top of the script, you can see I added a new unready variable. Defeat node equals to 游戏失败, which means your game is failed. This is a reference to the defeat UI node in the world scene, which I added alongside the existing victory UI. In ready, I hide both nodes at the start of the game so neither shows up until the player wins or loses. Now let's look at how the game detects defeat. In process, which runs every frame, I added these 3 lines. If get tree get not in group player is empty on level defeat. The function get tree get not in group player returns every node currently in the player group. Remember from earlier weeks, all my player towers are tagged with the player group when they are created. So if this list is empty, that means every tower has been destroyed. The player has lost. When that happens, I call onLevel defeat. Here is the onLevel defeat function. It does 3 things. First, it sets level running to false, which immediately stops enemy spawning and the level timer. Second, it loops through all remaining enemies and call quick free to remove them from the scene. This freezes the battlefield. Third, it sets defeat not visible equals to true, which shows the defeat UI on screen. This is structurally very similar to on-level victory, just with the opposite outcome. Having both functions follow the same pattern keeps the code clean and easy to maintain. Finally, I added a restart button so the player can try again after losing. The defeat UI in the scene contains a button connected to its function. On 重新开始 pressed, it means start again. The implementation is just one line: get tree reload current scene. This is a built-in Go.dot function that reloads the current scene from scratch, completely resetting the game state. Every variable, every node, every timer goes back to its initial value, and level 1 starts over fresh. It's a clean and simple way to handle restart without writing costume reset logic. So, to summarize week 5, I added 2 new enemy types to expand level 3 to its full 8 enemy roster, implemented a complete game defeat system that detects when all towers are destroyed, and added a restart button to give players a way to try again. Next week, I'll be working on the audio system to add sound effects to the game. Let's still play a little bit of the game. Okay, go to the next one. One of our character is dead. Okay, this is the next one. It comes back to the daylight map. We can notice that the number of enemy characters are growing from each map to map. So it means it's harder when you go to the next one. And also for next week, I might do something about this barrier of enter the house, so they will not just disappear at the end of the screen. This means restart, and now we restart from the beginning. So this is pretty much all contents for this week. Thank you for watching.